Okay, let us stand and sing our joy songs on the wall there. Okay. Amy Jo, is that you?
No.
Who's this pulpit assistant?
You are.
I'm supposed to do all that stuff? Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't. Oh, no, oh, okay. Well, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Ann's our reader today. I thought you had a pulpit assistant also.
No, you told me if I didn't have one, you would do it, and I texted you and said you are the assistant.
You know what? I missed that text message. Sorry.
Oh, my.
So I'm the assistant today, unbeknownst to me. So Ann is going to be our reader, and we have Bob Grubel with us today. Glad to have you, Bob. And our speakers will be Pam Woods and Amy Jo. So let's start off with our reader, Ann.
And Nan, fix the microphone for her, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
She changed it.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I changed it, moved it all around. I have no idea what's going on today. It's okay.
Bring it over here.
I'm gonna. Hold on just a second. Oh, you're gonna sit?
Yes,
Okay.
sit.
Oh. Hold on just a second. Let's see if I can. Whoa, don't knock you in the head there. Hold on just a second.
Okay,
Is that good?
that's good. Feel and see how the life force, the heartbeat of the universe, leads you on, guides you, takes you on the way. Yes, there are times when we need to march forward, muster up our willpower, and grind through the motions, but those times are transitory. And that's not the magical way we are living. Now, even when we stop, doubt, wonder, get tired and confused, the universe is there to revitalize us, move us along our path, and lead the way. If you're tired, rest. If you're sad, cry. If you're thirsty, take a long, cold drink of water. If you feel hopeless, feel that. But know it's just for the moment. If you feel confused, feel that. Feel it until clarity, desire, hope, and meaning break through. You don't have to trudge through on willpower, not any longer. You do not have to push your way through. Rest until you feel healed, then gently go forward. Let the universe assist you. Open your eyes, the eyes of your soul, and see where to go. Feel where to go. Sense what to do next. See how the magical power of the universe carries you along. Even when you get tired, even when you get confused, you are connected to yourself, to the universal life force, to God. Quiet the chatter of your mind. Renew your body, replenish your soul, Take in all the healing energy of the world around you. Then let the universe lead the way by Melody Beattie.
Wait a minute, let me untangle you there.
Okay, well.
I want to make sure you don't get tangled. That's good. Oh, look, it still works for me. I don't even have to bend over. Okay. All right. Now, we are going to sing our first hymn. If you'd like to stand when you are able, it's number 82, God is Love, both verses, number 82.
Number 82, God of Love.
Oh, it says is love here.
Well, that's my error then.
So we are ministerless today.
No, we're not.
No, no, that's true, because as Melanie likes to say, we're all ministers to each other. So, so we're all filling in and doing our part this morning. So I'm going to do the Bible verse, and I've chosen that Jesus said, "I am come that you may have life and have it more abundantly." So the question is, what is life? Is it just the time we spend between birth and death? What's death? So I think we think of life abundant as being wealthy and healthy. Both of those things are very, very important. I think those are the two things that come to mind. The first, right away. So I just want to read for you this great definition of life. This comes from a book by Ernest Holmes. He's a religious science person. This thing called life is a little book, great little book. He has a series of small books. And so he says, your supreme satisfaction will be in the knowledge that the law of life exists, that you are one with it, inseparable from it. We must then conceive of life as a presence so complete that the word infinite alone, and with all that that word implies, is inadequate to express it. There's a universal wholeness seeking expression through everything. We are calling it simply life. The religionist calls it God. The philosopher calls it reality. Life is infinite energy coupled with limitless creative imagination. It is the invisible essence and substance of every visible form. Its nature is goodness, truth, wisdom, and beauty, as well as energy and imagination. Our highest satisfaction comes from a sense of conscious union with this invisible life. I like that definition because it just simply encompasses everything. So The important part about this also is that we don't want to actually think that life comes to us from out here. Because it is our consciousness that creates our life out there. So you've heard me say many times, we live life from the inside out. And if we base our life on the outside in, and we determine our lives by what's happening out there that we see, especially the stuff we don't like, then our life takes a tumble, and we're not happy. So we need to look at our life out there and go, well, do I like what I see? If I don't, as Ernest Holmes and others have said, then you have to change your mind. It means changing your consciousness about it. And so it's very exciting to know that life abundant is ours if we would actually believe the words of Jesus. So now let's affirm our statement of being, which is about life and life abundant. And it's in our order of service. If you don't have it, we'll say it together. God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am the individualized expression of God and am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for inviting me back here. I have enjoyed very much this community of people for many decades now, and I see quite a few new faces and some old. I'm most grateful for the emphasis you put on being with each other in a heartfelt way. That's what counts in life. I'm going to share a song called Every One of Us Has Got a Name that I wrote some 20 years ago for a family reunion. So here we go. We are born into the family of humankind, greeted by the heart of love and home. By luck or chance, intent or grace, no one really knows. The blood of ancients runs inside our bones. Names that we all carry, gifts from those who love, to give us birth and care till we move on. No task in life is simple, and parenting is one. It gives us a chance to carry on. There are those who stay together 50 years or more, some across the oceans to open up life's door. Sea to sea we learn to dance on the always changing shore. And every one of us has got a name. What we make of every moment is only ours to choose. Till the soil teach or make amends, we labor with a vision of what we came here for. give, we honor what is past before. There are those who stay together 50 years or more. Some across the ocean to open up life's door. From sea to sea we learn to dance on the always changing shore. And every one of us has got a name. Every one of us, every one of us, every one of us has got names.
Thank you, Bob. That was lovely. So now is the time in our service when we will spend a little quiet time. Are there any prayers in the prayer box, prayer requests? So just because you didn't actually write a name on a piece of paper, it doesn't matter. Hold that person, those people, those persons in your heart, just for time here. And know that everything that we think and say spiritually that is the truth of us is also the truth about every single person. Although sometimes we don't accept it, recognize it in ourselves. So let's take a few moments to actually focus in on ourselves, each one. Let us be comfortable in our seat. And let us take a few breaths to signal the body that we are slowing down. And we'll be spending a few quiet moments. Sitting in a posture of openness and open reflection. That our mind is open, our body's relaxed. Let us absorb these meditative words, knowing that this is the truth of each of us. I am so strong that nothing can disturb my peace of mind. I talk health, happiness, and prosperity to every person I meet. I make all of my friends, and even people that I actually don't really know, feel that there is something worthwhile in them. I look on the sunny side of everything. I think only of the best. I work only for the best and expect only the best. I am just as enthusiastic about the success of others as I am about my own success. I forget the mistakes of the past and I press on to the greater achievements of the future. I wear a cheerful expression and give a smile to every living creature I meet. I give so much time to improving myself that I have no time to criticize others. I am too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit the presence of trouble. I think well of myself, and I proclaim this fact to the world not in loud words, but in great deeds. I live in the faith that the universe is on my side, so long as I am true to the best that is in me. I know that I am the life of God. That life that I live from the inside out. I no longer allow outer circumstances to determine how I feel, what I think, what I say. I live life from within. So let us just sit for a few moments with those statements. And if one of them really, really applied to you and you really know, just sit with it. Be quiet with it. So now, while we are each one in a quiet space, let us recite the Lord's Prayer. It's in the first page of your hymnal. Let's recite that together. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed is thy name. Thy kingdom is come. Thy will is done on earth as it is in heaven. Thou dost give us this day our daily bread, and thou dost forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Thou dost lead us not into temptation, but dost deliver us from all error. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. We say, Amen. So who's going to speak first? Amy Jo. Okay. Want to come on up?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Nancy, would you help her? Never mind, Rick's gonna do it.
Sorry. His tallness.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you for inviting me to speak on how I got here. And so yesterday, I spent, 6 hours trying to decide what I was going to talk about. Sitting on the sofa. And ended up watching Forrest Gump, and then Pretty Woman, and had a little bit of an idea, but things didn't start flowing till this morning, and that took me back to college. I was head of freshman orientation my senior year, was supposed to give a speech up on stage, and hundreds of fresh women. It was a women's college, and I had a couple of notes, but as I'm on stage and everyone else is talking, I'm writing my speech, so took me back. Seems to work for me. So I was sitting here thinking, starting to say, I was thinking about that Steve Martin movie. What was it? Does anybody remember?
Oh, I don't remember the name of it, but I know was he an idiot?
Yes. Oh. So I was born in a house well, no, that's not true. I was born in a different house, but I was born in Roanoke and primarily grew up in the house that Kendrick, my son, and I live in now. I was born in another place, Grandview Village, off of Hirschberger. And then an interesting connection with that is my neighbor across the street from me now was our neighbor then, and he held me as a little baby. And I'll bring that full circle in a little bit. So I had a very charmed childhood. Felt very much loved from my mom and my dad and my sister. My sister was 10 years older. She was the guinea pig for my parents. She was born in 55 and was a teenager in the late 60s, early 70s, graduated in 73, and she had it hard. They were tough on her. They were very strict with her. And then when I came along, they were not as strict with me. But I felt a lot of love. I grew up in the Episcopal Church, and my cute story about that is Mom told me that she had searched for churches and landed at St. James Episcopal Church. And I don't remember the reason. I have a memory of being there in preschool. I don't remember the reason why she started searching again. But what I remember her saying was that we ended up at St. Elizabeth's Episcopal Church because women could wear pantsuits there, polyester pantsuits, to church on Sundays. And that people could smoke. So it was a little more relaxed atmosphere there. So Mom and I went to church together. I remember the main thing I remember was we got a new minister. I don't remember his name, but I can picture his face. And his opening message, his introductory message, he had, a turntable, and he played "Morning Has Broken." And I don't remember the sermon, but I just thought that was the coolest thing, that he stepped out of bounds and played a song on the turntable, and then, that led into his message. And, mainly I remember Sunday school, which was a lot of fun. We talked about, our angst and child issues, and it was fun. Mom and I were not real strict about, we had to go every Sunday. And I say Mom and I, Dad was not interested in going to church, and Mom sometimes labeled him as atheist, sometimes as agnostic. What I do remember was one Sunday Mom was sick and couldn't take me, and Dad stepped up and took me. And I remember sitting, he didn't feel like kneeling, but he did sit on the edge of his chair. So he participated. I want to say he sacrificed whatever he didn't believe in for me, because he knew I wanted to be there. So. Anyway, very good experience with all that. My first, I think I shared this the last time I spoke, my first encounter with Valley Community Church was in high school. I had a piano recital right here. Yeah, really, really good feel. And also in high school I met William Hauser. We called him Doc Hauser, one of the founders of this building. And I understand he put in a lot of money to help to build this building. I was part of the first class of City School downtown, and he was our English literature teacher. And he and I connected, and I remember, I can picture him, he asked a question, and I raised my hand and answered it correctly, before anyone else, and that just sealed the deal for us. And he told me a lot about, his belief with Valley Community Church, with Divine Science, and I remember I was trying to look for it in the house this morning, I couldn't find it, but he put together, I guess they were inspirational verses, little bitty books, about this size, and he would give them to me. I remember, so that was my introduction to Valley Community Church. I remember feeling intrigued, just kind of put it off to the side. Something interesting. In college, I went to Randolph-Macon Women's College in Lynchburg, and I don't remember what year, but I started hearing things about traditional religion. And I was a very staunch feminist, and what I remember standing out was, I don't remember how it tied in, but something about fertility, Easter being about fertility, men chasing women. And I didn't like that. And there were some other things I heard about Christmas, and anyway, I became an atheist. That was it. I remember, having a discussion with Mom, and Mom was like, okay, she just kind of rolled with it. So, let's see, atheist throughout my 20s. Oh, after graduating from Randolph-Macon, moved up to D.C., up to Arlington, worked in D.C., had a lot of time playing and working. I think I was 32. I had a best girlfriend, and she and I were really, really close, like sisters, closer than sisters. And her name was Sherry. She was very interesting. She committed suicide. Her grandmother, her father had committed suicide, her father's mother had committed suicide, and she saw that as a way out, and she took it. And I saw it coming. I had taken her to a yoga retreat, and I could feel, something was happening, although I was kind of in denial and not putting a label to it. But I remember backing away from her, which I think now is probably just my energy allowing her to transition. Nevertheless, when I found out, my husband at the time, Brian, and I went over to her apartment, and I was sitting on her bed, and she had prescription bottles set up. She had everything organized in line, so she'd been thinking about this for a while. Anyway, I'm sitting on her bed, and I'm just my head was so full. I was trying to put it all together. What could I have done? Just really, really full. So I'm sitting on her bed, and I felt this presence. I felt it was more than presence. It was like warm honey just slowly covering me outside and inside. I could just feel it, rolling down my body. And it was powerful and beautiful and amazing. And I looked around, and I was like, what was that? And then I just perked up. I'm like, she's fine. Let's go. And my ex-husband and, a couple of friends and neighbors, they were like, what? I'm like, she's fine. We can go. And so then, I left. I'm like, okay, there's something bigger. My atheism has come to an end now. There's something bigger out there. And I really wanted to know what that was. So a coworker at work, who was also good friends with Sherry, gave me the book Mutant Message by Marlo Morgan. And it was about an American woman who went to Australia and ended up going on a walkabout and learning all kinds of spiritual lessons. And I read it in one night. I was fascinated. Well, underneath, I was working at Department of Energy at the time, and at my office building, there was a bookstore underneath. And I found the spiritual section. And the next book that I was drawn to was Of Water and the Spirit by Malidoma Patrice Sommet. And that was also, well, yeah, it was, let's see, I believe he was West African. As a child, Malidoma had been kidnapped. I'm not going to specify the church because I don't remember, but a white church. And, grew up as a foster child in the church. And he ran away at age 16, had no idea where he had come from, where his village was, but he found his way back to the village. And along the way had just this amazing spiritual journey. Like, I remember streams of neon-colored laser lights and jumping into a middle of a fire ring, and it was just fascinating. So I sat on the floor of that bookstore during work hours for hours just reading these books. I was so hungry and was just soaking up all the information I could about bigger things, anything spiritual. So that was my turning point, was when, sitting on Sherry's bed. And then that was a humongous life shift for me. Let's see. Then my ex-husband and I split up, and I was absolutely devastated. I was so in love with him. And I depended on him for entertainment. And that was 2000. And something told me to reach out and find a church. So I found the Unity Church in Washington, D.C. I tried several different churches. I went, with some coworkers, friends, to several different churches and settled on Unity of D.C. And I also, part of my empowerment, I decided I didn't need Brian to go to concerts. We went to a lot of live shows, that I could do it by myself. So I went to a Shaka Khan concert by myself, had a ball. So, a lot of shifting going on with that. Really, really enjoyed Unity of D.C. And Kendrick was baptized there. I'm not sure that's the word we use there. And then the message that Reverend Sylvia Sumter at Unity of D.C. gives when children are baptized is, she quotes from Khalil Gibran, that our children are not our children. They come through us, but not from us. Is that the way it goes? Also, let's see, okay, so then in my devastation, I had a coworker who had also broken up with his fiance, John. John and I shared our heartbreak and created Kendrick. And John was not meant to be in Kendrick's life. I knew, that would be the case. I knew I would be a single mom, and I embraced it. While I was pregnant with Kendrick, I had my first intuitive reading from Reverend Jim at Tacoma Park Metaphysical Chapel. Reverend Jim, I don't know if you all know of Reed Brown at Roanoke Metaphysical Chapel. Reverend Jim Webb had been an apprentice of Reed Brown and started his own church up in Tacoma Park, Maryland. So I had an intuitive reading while I was 7 months pregnant, and it was mainly about Kendrick. And I was just fascinated. And then I started reading about children's past lives. And then I was really into reading about children up to age 5, I believe, who can recall past lives. So I was really, aware and alert on what kind of information Kendrick would share with me as a child. And he did. There was one evening, I had a blue lava lamp in his bedroom, And he was 4, and all of a sudden he went into a kind of a trance. And he said, "Those are not good people." And I said, "Who's not good people?" You know, I was trying to get the full story. And what I came out with was, I think he had been involved with some kind of bombing of like a restaurant or something. So it was really, really interesting. Kendrick didn't share anything else after that, but that was a really cool moment. Let's see. So Kendrick and I went to Unity of DC. And then there came a time when there was a little bit of friction with one of the members, and I decided to go to Tacoma Park Metaphysical Chapel, Reverend Jim's church, and that was really resonating with me. But I remember I would have a lot of readings with Reverend Jim, and I would say, "Reverend Jim, I really want to come to your church, but I'm not feeling it." He said, "It's okay. You know, not every lid fits, you know, the kettle. There's different sizes, different times." And it was, you know, I've kept in my mind this whole time because it gave me permission to just go where I felt drawn to. Let's see. So my mom passed in 2008. I knew she was going to pass. 3 years before that, I had a reading with another intuitive who told me, you know, she's got 3 more years. I was trying to help her heal. She had myelodysplasia, which is kind of a form of leukemia. It was a really beautiful moment when she passed. She was in Carillion, and my dad, my sister, and I all stepped away. We had been with her for 24 hours. We stepped away, and as we simultaneously stepped away, you know, Mom passed. I immediately called Reverend Jim. I was like, what is her spirit doing? What's happening? Explain this to me. I was just fascinated. And he explained this beautiful image. And then I crawled in bed with her because she and I slept together for years, you know, as I was growing up. I crawled in bed and I can smell her hair, you know, as I speak now. It was a really, really special moment. I went back to work a week later and didn't allow myself grieving time. And the following Mother's Day, I had a nervous breakdown. And I was like, how in the world am I going to keep on going? Kendrick and I had been affirming to go on the Disney cruise. And I had printed out pictures. We would sing the Mickey Mouse song at dinner. We looked down at every night at dinner. And this is my first example of, you know, law of attraction and manifesting our desires. You know, I knew it was a very expensive vacation. I didn't know how it was going to happen. But I had a friend who, after I had the nervous breakdown, he said, "What do you need?" And I said, "I need to get away." And he said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "I want to take Kendrick on the Disney cruise." And he said, "Done." And he treated us to the Disney cruise. It was just an amazing vacation, but it was a Band-Aid. And that was, let's see, 2009, the summer of 2009. I wasn't performing well at work. I was on probation. I was able to take short-term disability. I had a therapist. Took short-term disability for 3 or 4 months. During that time, Dad had been diagnosed with colon cancer. So Kendrick and I were driving down from DC down to Roanoke, back and forth. And on the driving south on 81, had another one of those moments, like I had on Sherry's bed. And it was just the strongest feeling that Kendrick and I were supposed to move back to Roanoke. And before Mom died, she said, "Do you and Kendrick want the house?" I said, no, we're good. You know, I love DC, just felt like we would always be in DC. But on that drive down on 81, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're supposed to move back to Roanoke. I did not want to move back to Roanoke. I don't want to, you know, I loved Dad, but I was doing my own thing, you know, as an adult child. I did not want to be, you know, in that situation, but it felt so strong. So I followed it. It was a very hard year. Dad was king of his castle, I was used to being queen of my castle, and we butted heads big time. But shared a lot of love at the same time. My sister, Julie, had been drinking for many years. She had ADHD. She numbed her pain with alcohol, and she wanted to move back too. She was going through a divorce with her husband. She wanted to move back, and so she moved back that December of 2010, and I said it was a really special process for me to set up my mom's bedroom furniture for Julie in her apartment down in Grandin Village. And 2 days after she moved back, she died. I found her in her bed, passed away. She had taken some antidepressants and alcohol. And 2 months after that, then Dad died in a car wreck right down the street. So that was a lot. And I felt very much alone, and had to deal with PTSD that year. The main thing was just feeling alone, and then I don't remember the date, but I just said to myself, okay, well, all I've got is God. Of course I had Kendrick, but didn't feel like I could lean on Kendrick. So that was a major turning point as well, a major shift for me. And let me back up and say, when Kendrick and I were coming down, I would go visit Unity on Sundays. Reverend Diane was there, and she would visit Mom when Mom was sick. So I had that connection at Unity. And I don't remember, I guess in the back of my head, I had Valley Community Church in the back of my head. And I love the burning bowl ceremony. We did that at Unity of DC, and I knew Unity of Roanoke did it, and then you all did it too, or released the balloons, yeah. And so that was my draw, and I don't remember the first day that I really started coming here. I just fell in love with Maurita, and have just always felt so much love from you all, so much love and acceptance. And going through my successes and my down times, and just not feeling judgment from you all have stepped in my times of need. So it feels really good. This feels like home to me here. I do like to go over to Unity of Roanoke. Sometimes I just feel drawn to go. So let's see, what else do I want to share? I do want to share, a couple of years ago I was dating a gentleman. I got to the point 2 or 3 or 4 years ago where I was just really tired of doing it alone. And people kept saying, you're so strong to have gotten through your family deaths and be a single mother. And I got to this point, I was like, I'm tired of being strong. I want someone else to take over. Well, instead of, connecting with God to take over, I was looking for a man to take over. So I found someone who willingly took over, but it was also an abusive relationship. And ended in severe abuse where I was almost killed. And I still marvel at why I wasn't absolutely, God stepped in, grace of God. I really feel like my mom and dad had a hand in it too. And since then, I have not felt like dating. And I've focused on Kendrick, of course. He's a senior this year. Focused on redefining myself, and let go of putting so much emphasis on trying to build my business. Started teaching full time, and just I keep hearing Marita saying, just take time and connect with God, connect with God. So I've really been doing that a lot this summer, and it feels really good. And I like to say, I like to put my hands in a ball and create an energy ball. And I say, God, you're omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. What does it feel like to be connected with you right now? What does it feel like to have you inside me? And it feels so, 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 so good. And then I say, what does it feel like to have my car fully fixed? What does it feel like to have, whatever? My miracle story of recent is my beloved convertible Volvo, which, was a gift from Dad from his settlement when he passed. Stopped on Kendrick on 460, and the coolant ran out, and he drove home, and it messed up the motor. So after $1,000 worth of repair, I was told the head gasket was cracked, so that's another $3,000. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, So for 6 weeks, I hadn't had a car, was borrowing my generous neighbors' cars, asking for rides. Everyone's been very supportive and generous. But it is just not fun not having your own car. That is, to me, that's just, freedom. It is, bless anybody's heart who has to depend on other people for rides. So anyway, I was creating that energy ball and connecting with God, and and really, really feeling true about it. Not just going through the motions and saying it, and feeling really true. And guess what happened? A hailstorm. And it pummeled my convertible. It pummeled it so much that Nationwide declared it a total loss. So they gave me a settlement of $8,400, and I went back and forth. Do I put that money into fixing this car, or do I buy a new one? So muscle testing, I muscle test a lot. My dad, we always had old cars in the family. Dad had an auto repair shop. He would hold them 20 years, replace the engine, transmission, everything. So there's part of that ingrained in me, and I'm like, I wanted both. So I bought back the Volvo for $1,000. It's going to sit in the driveway till I can get it fixed. My neighbor across the street, Charlie, who was my neighbor at Grandview Village and held me as a baby. He's a car salesman. Totally trust him. I said, Charlie, I need a new old car. I felt like I created that situation on 460 with Kendrick because I worried so much about him in the Volvo. Honestly, I was just worried about this good-looking white kid with the top down and that not going over well with some people. So I picked a big old boat SUV 2010 that I don't have to worry about him in. So Charlie, we got that all worked out, and so now the interesting thing is I bought that vehicle Thursday, and I had to check myself this morning. I'm like, I have not been connecting with God. I think I'm all that because, this situation, this miracle happened. So this morning I woke up and I'm like, all right, got to get back to connecting with God again. So anyway, that's where I am, and I'm deeply appreciative of you all and the love that you all constantly share. So thank you. I'm sorry.
It was wonderful, thank you. It's gonna be okay, because I made a map, so I won't take you to the cornfield and you'll all die of heat stroke. I have spoken here before about what this church means to me, and I'm just amazed this morning how your message and you and your music and the reading and the Bible verse are all so cohesive. Because one of the great things to me about this church is like you were alluding to, I feel led. And when we're led, we have to be careful where we're going. And we're accountable here. And so I'm going to tell you some stories, not in a linear way, but in a cyclical way. I want to talk about angels and spirits in my life. And it's going to be me, and it's going to be about my stories, but I want you to think about your life and your stories and your coincidences. So I want to start like you did. I want to tell you about young Pam going off to college in the mid-70s. So excited. Unbeknownst to me, before I arrived on campus, there was a professor there who was very outgoing and interesting. He was a writer named Alex Thoreau. Some of you might know of him. His brother Paul wrote a lot of interesting novels that were made into movies, Mosquito Coast, and Alex was a travel writer, and his novels were a little bit more intellectual, and he was teaching at the college that he had been teaching at the college where I was soon to go. And his colleagues hated him. I don't know how many of you have been involved in academics, but they're a very jealous group. He was well published, he was wealthy, and he wore a cape to class with a red lining, and he drove a Bentley. And students loved him, so everybody else was just kind of, eh. So before I arrived at college, Alex Thoreau had an affair with a student, an art student. And that didn't go over well with his colleagues either. And they were eventually engaged, and because of his status in the world, Alex was able to procure the Washington Cathedral for the wedding. And Linda, his fiancée, went up to Charlottesville to prepare her trousseau and get ready for her big wedding. And she reconnected with her old high school boyfriend, and she jilted him. And let me tell you, his colleagues back at college loved that. That was just like, the big man comes down. And because of his connections, his broken heart, he left the college and he went off to Yale. That didn't go over well with his colleagues either. I think they wanted him to go to, you know, hell or someplace. But he wrote a revenge novel, which was terrible. He later apologized for it. But that was the situation when I went to college. They had hired another writer, William Woods, to start a new journalism project at the college. And then I came along. My freshman year, I was 18. And I had an affair with William Woods. I was an art student. And just like Linda, I was a robust, attractive woman with a long braid hanging down my back. So I'm sure these people were like, what the hell? And William was well published. His first novel was well received. And he was a stringer for the Post. He wrote for Esquire and Rolling Stone and Playboy. We all know everyone likes to read that for the interviews. And so that became a personal ghost story for me. There was a woman in Charlottesville, busy being an artist, who looked exactly like me, and I had stepped into her life. I got married. I didn't jilt my husband. We divorced 20 years later, and it's at that point that I want to stop my story and pick it up later, because it's important. But as I tell you these things, I want you to think about the cyclical events in your own life. Because in my later years, when I came to Roanoke, everything changed. I've had so many lives, but my Roanoke life is the one I'm nurturing. Do you remember where you met me, Amy Jo?
Yes. Do you want me to say?
Yes.
The census, 2010 census.
The 2010 census, right? And then after listening to you speak, I'm like, wow, she was really going through it, 2010. I was attracted to Amy Jo, who was on my census crew. I don't think the census will ever be as fun. It's like totally different now. But Amy Jo passed out coupons for her business to everybody in our crew. We had a little party when our work was done. And I went to see Amy Jo in her office. Now I know, we had talked some about what you were going through, but it was really pretty overwhelming for you. But it was in Amy Jo's office that I met her mother's paintings, and I heard about her father. And Amy Jo and I share a parallel life of single motherhood and struggle. And Amy did some work on me, and I went to see her sometime afterwards as well. And the last time Amy worked on me, she said, "I'm so excited for you." And she said, "I think you're going to be a great teacher." And I was so busy. The thing about life, I think, for all of us is we're so busy. I don't think we hear sometimes God. That's why I'm telling you this. Because I want you to hear. And I want you to hear. Because Amy Jo is one of my angels. And so I also met another, were you part of this church then, in 2010 when you had that business?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't. But here we are. And I had another angel, my friend Sharon, who used to go to this church. I met Sharon when I was merchandising for Belk, and I was setting that giant towel wall in the linen department, and I saw her down there, and she looked like she needed help. And so I helped her with towels. And I had a lot of information about towels because I worked at Belk. And we had a nice conversation. 2 days later, she came back to Belk looking for me, and she hired me for a weekend job in her little shop that she ran. And she became one of my best friends, still is. We're kind of separated now. But back then, we had parallel lives. We were single mothers. At that time, we were both extricating ourselves from our partners. And we went through a lot together. And that's how I met Jenny Weiss, another one of my angels. Jenny used to shop in the shop where I was working. And one day, some years later, I bumped into Jenny at the co-op, and I was eating lunch with a friend, and she joined us, and I was really suffering, and I told her what I'd been through, and she said, "You ought to really try the nursing program at TAP. You ought to get your CNA certification." And anybody who knows me or had known me up to that point, it's amazing whose advice I take and whose I don't. But I did. I had lost my job in the recession with the rescue mission, and my whole life has been art and merchandising, and I went into the healthcare field, and it was some time after that Jenny, who was kind of mentoring me through this experience of healthcare, recommended that I come to church. Sharon had invited me to church, but I was too busy. I belonged to another church, and when you're busy in another church, you're doing what? You're going to Sunday school classes. I was an interfaith hostess. I was doing the choir thing with my kids. I would stand up and read from the Bible at Christmas time. I was doing a lot of stuff in my church. I was very busy, but it wasn't anything. It wasn't that unity. It wasn't a body of people nurturing each other. So I think you need to know too about our friend Kate Lear. I was talking to Kate one time. I may have mentioned this last time I spoke. And it turns out Kate and I went to the same little Methodist church out in the country. We didn't know each other, but we were both present at that church at the same time. And here we are. And it was at that church, I know I've said this before, but you know, just like stories in the Bible, I think they bear repeating sometimes. A spokesperson from the mission came to our congregation and was sharing with us about the rescue mission. And she said, look to your left and look to your right, and one of you will be looking at a homeless person. And I was like, whoa, because it was me. She said, homeless people have secrets, and they're everywhere amongst us. Just like people with no car, or whatever, what other kind of infirmities that you might have in your heart. There's people out there like that. So somebody had turned and looked at me, and I was like, because I was living in my car and had a job. And when I had my kids, I was in a hotel. I think I've mentioned that to you guys before. And it wasn't long after that that another angel, my friend, other Martha, that I met also at Belk, I was up on the scaffolding one day, and there was this woman down there looking lost, and I said, can I help you? And she said, I don't think so, I've lost my husband. And now I know how that feels. And so I said, well, what's he look like? I'm up here. And she said, well, he's got a little bald spot and a red shirt. And I said, he's right over there. So they came back over, and she gave me her card. She's a real estate agent, and the name of her agency was Alpha and Omega. Well, that's hard to forget. 2 years later, during the turmoil with my kids and custody and everything, I called Alpha and Omega and I asked for Martha. And I said, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I met you 2 years ago, right? Remember? And she said, oh yes, I don't think you're crazy. It's a God thing. And Martha helped me get my first house. And so that's an angel in my life, because all these things seem to kind of come around and come around. And there may be something I'm saying to you today that's coming around, just like I feel when I listen to Amy Jo, or I hear your music or speak to you. It comes around. And in this church, in this body of people, I want you to think about what happens to us when we socialize and when we go out together. When we're walking together, when we're having lunch, when we're at the coffee shop. Where else do you hang out with people and talk about the God inside you and bring these things that improve our lives and make us more available to God with your God ball and your connection? Where else do you do that? So that's the message that I really wanted to share with you through my stories. And I hope some of those stories kind of give you your own sense of your cycle of life, and maybe why you're hearing this, or why you're at this church, or why other people who come in. When I came through that door as Jenny's guest, Jenny wasn't there yet, and I met Jan, and I felt at home. I had never been at a place where I was invited to rewrite the Lord's Prayer, or to investigate the possibility that all of us have God inside us, and that we are all available to be nurtured, loved, and improved by ourselves, with each other, because we are, because God is. Right? Somebody said that. So I want to wrap up with, I told you about my little college issue. I told you I married the professor. We were together for 20 years. We divorced. It was hard, but we stayed friends. So that ex-husband married a woman who looks exactly like me. She's a little younger. And she's delightful. And we all three work together. My ex-husband has had some health issues, so he's had a little oxygen deprivation, hasn't brought out his best qualities. But last couple weeks ago, I had a holiday. Some of you saw my pictures on Facebook at the beach enjoying time. I was with my ex-husband and his wife. My son came down. He's the godfather of my son. And we just had a lovely time together. We didn't exactly get into church subjects, except that anytime it would come up, I would say, oh, I do that at church, or I talk about that at church, or we do this at church, or we talked about the healing circle, we talked about, he came and met some of my friends at coffee. Some of you were there, remember that. So there is a circle. Who would believe that if you wrote a book about it? You could write that novel, but it's really true in my case. It all comes around. And so I want you to hold that story in your heart, and I want you to think about the times when that might have happened for you, when it came around with a family member or a friend or whatever. And I want to end in a Doug-like fashion with a joke. Forgive me, Bob and Jan. I thought I remembered this old joke from years ago when I was out with them the other night. It's so rude to crack up at your own jokes, especially when they're so old. But I'm just going to say that one day a man heard a knock at the door, and he went to the door and opened it. Nobody there, so he shut it, went back to business. A moment later, there was a knock at the door again. And he opened the door, a little voice said, "Hey!" And he looked down, and there's a snail on his doormat. So he just picked it up, and he just threw it across the street. 2 years later, the man hears a knock at the door, and he opens it up, and there's the little snail again, and he says, "What the hell was that all about?" So I think that's a great joke for what it is that we're all doing here together. We're all led. We are accountable. We are friends in the most agape sense of the word. We're growing ourselves spiritually together. And I want to leave you with Luke 7:14, which I'm not going to quote, but I'm going to tell you that it's the scripture in the Bible where Jesus talks to the dead man and says, "Get up." And he did. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. That was quite exciting. Thank you all for sharing such personal information with us. It just makes the family circle tighter. Thank you. Okay, so, okay. Where's the second music? It's now.
Now.
Oh, you know, it got knocked off the bottom of the page of the order of service. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. That was my fault. I'm like, where's the music?
Well, that's very, what's the word? Interesting isn't the right word, but I'll use it to hear your stories. So when I got here, there was one individual here, and I took that moment to inquire to find out if Eddie was still here, and I found that he isn't in the physical sense anymore. But I'm feeling pretty strong right now, so I'm probably going to cut loose on this song. That's interesting itself. I just want to share that I brought with me a bunch of CDs. I've been giving them away for the last 4 or 5 years because people are streaming everything now. They're not listening to CDs that much. But if you want to, I have 8 different CDs with me. If you want to take my collection home with you, or one, or just sample whatever, they're all free. Help me out, lighten my load, see me after, okay? And you can stream me too. I got like 85 songs in a row on YouTube, bang, you know, Amazon, they're everywhere. Spotify. So this song's called I Was Dreamed of Flying, and it's one of my favorites. I look forward to catching up with some of you later, so here we go. Always dreamed of flying, then I left the ground, and I opened up both my eyes, and here is what I actually found. Little children all alone, big people that got no home, Mother Earth on the run, crazy people got all these guns. Still I always have this faith that it will work out. Like a carpenter at the lathe, I keep turning what is inside out. Situations changing like a bold sunset. Multicolored mystery, here's a vision of what we could get. Golden trust to re-emerge, something deeper than the spoken word. Tolerance for every kind, awesome love to open our heart and mind. Always dreamed of flying, won't you join me there? In a world for everyone, built on love and not despair. Built on love and not despair. Love and not despair. Always dreamed of flying, won't you join me there? In a world for everyone, built on love and not despair. Love and not despair. Love and not despair. Love and not despair. Love and not despair.
Thank you, Bob. That was exciting. It was rousing.
And he was excited.
Yes.
Okay, now's the time in our service where we give a gift back from the gifts that we've already gotten. We're going to do the blessing of the gifts, and you'll find that in your order of service. So we'll read it together. Today, I acknowledge God, omnipresent, as the source of all good, as the source of my good. With this acknowledgement, I accept His will, which is abundance in every aspect of my life. I release all thoughts of lack and limitation, and I am open and receptive to the increased flow of abundance to me right now. I joyfully accept the gifts of life and give freely of the special gift that I am. Through me, God omnipresent blesses and multiplies this gift for all. Thank you. I'd also like to pass the prayer basket. There are 10,000 names in here on 10,000 little pieces of paper. So try to take more than one. We all know that praying for others is also very good for our own soul. So there you go.
Okay, what a wonderful message from both of these ladies, and we really do appreciate you sharing. It's been, I've watched both of these women grow over the years, and I always laugh with Pam. She's the first person I've ever known coming to a church. Most people come and sit in the back row. She marched right up here, and she's been sitting in the front. And I'll say something sometimes about somebody in the back. I don't know who that is. She doesn't know anybody who sits in the back. Unlike the rest of us, it knows. But anyhow, it's just so good to know that this church does what it does for people. And we try to support everybody as much as possible. And I know a lot of people, everybody in this church has a struggle of some kind every week. And I know that, and most of you all know that too. And so we try to support everybody as much as we can. And as Pam said, all these things that we do, the Wednesday night coffee, the craft, the healing circle, everything we do, we try to support people, and it brings us all closer together. So if you haven't been to some of these things, we encourage you to come and join us sometime every week or whenever you can. So again, thank you all, and thank you, Bob, for being here. That was great. The flowers this week are sponsored by me for Nancy's birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So thank you. I'm going to try to cut these short. I had some other things, but I'll announce them next week. But coming up in September, we're going to have a work day on Saturday. We're going to not only do yard work, but we've got some painting and some other things to do, so we're going to be doing that. Also, we told the teachers that are in here that make a list of things that they need for their classes, and we'd be glad to help them out. So Amy Jo has brought a list for her. So I'm going to give it in here. Y'all can look at it, and then we'll make some more copies and post it around so we can help get started on that. Melanie and Kate aren't here, so when they bring their list, we'll work on this too, because they all have different grades, and Amy Jo's at Patrick Henry. So anyhow, we'll work on that this week. You have a New Healing Circle this Thursday night?
Is it that time already? Yes.
It is, 6:30.
6:30 Thursday night.
Okay. Also, on Labor Day, we're going to have a cookout. I haven't determined the time yet. It'll be that Monday, probably around noon. The other thing that Marita said to announce this, she's going to start an Old Testament class in September. The sign-up sheet is in the kitchen in there, so sign up for that. We don't know the time yet, and we'll determine that, I guess, after the people sign up and they see what time they want. Lastly, we'll make this announcement. We had a board meeting this week. Also, when we're talking about working outside, we're going to start, we haven't done anything on the inside of the church for like 40 years. So we're going to start working on that. Like, we're going to try to get the sanctuary painted and some other things, but we'll go into that in more detail next week when some of our other people are back. We have a lot of people that are on vacation this week. They're traveling and enjoying the last part of summer. So anyhow, we'll announce that more next week. But in the board meeting this week, Nancy came in and she handed Laurel this note, and it said, in honor of Nancy's birthday, and it was from her father, and to go towards the purchase of new chairs for our church, he gave us a check for $3,000.
Oh.
Thanks, Bill Stokes, but thank you, Nancy, for having a birthday.
He's at home waiting for me to come home and have lunch with him.
Anyhow, so let's get on with whatever and come next door for dessert and coffee. So.
Okay. So we're going to sing our last hymn. So if everybody would stand as you are able, and it's going to be hymn number 98. You Are Mine, both verses. We'll have to practice that one a little more. It's a beautiful song, really beautiful, but yeah, we're gonna have to work on that one, Rick. Thank you. Let's all gather together, hold hands.
Exciting.
Lucy and Ethel all at the same time, thank you. Okay, so let's look around at the people who are standing in this amoeba of love. We've never had an actual circle, but that's okay, because we don't care. So these are the community of people that we've been sharing time with this morning, and it's really wonderful to see everyone here. And I would like everybody to repeat after me. May I be alive as long as I live. Let's say that. May I be alive as long as I live. Because we want life abundant to flow through us. But we don't want to just be walking corpses. We want to be alive as long as we live, as long as we draw breath. And alive to the abundance in the world. And let us go out and share that aliveness with people that we meet this week and anyone we come into contact with, and give a smile to that stranger who especially looks mad. And let us give of ourselves in a loving way. And let's all have a wonderful week, and may you all go in peace. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.